I learned what to do when I met my mentor, and he started giving me guidance and everything. And I mean, he was holding me to another level that nobody else did. And everyone else like, oh, you're doing great, keep it up. And here he is. He's like, hey, you said you were going to set this goal and like you didn't hit it. I'm like, oh yeah, I've been busy. This and this happened. He's like, those sound like excuses.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
He's like, do you want to do better? Or you want to stay where you're at?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. And then he says something along the lines of, if you're not going to take this seriously, you're going to get a bill. I usually charge $300 an hour.
Okay.
And I'm like, yes, sir. Like, noted. I'm not going to abuse this anymore. And to this day, I've met with him almost every month.
Welcome to the Your Peak Life podcast. Let's conquer the summit of life and reach the apex of our potential.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Your Peak Life. DJ Julian Rivera here, Edgar the Sphere Munoz, and we got another sphere in the building. A good friend of mine, actually, Erick Pinzon, the man, the myth, the legend. Everyone makes some noise. The crowd goes wild. Mr. Electrified Marina himself in the building. But more importantly, we talk about Your Peak Life. We want to hear his story, what he's about, what he's done, and just really everything Pinzon. What's up, dude?
I'm glad to be here, man. We don't hang out nearly enough as I'd like, and I don't know, we probably see each other once a month. I think last time was your wedding.
Yeah.
And I don't know, always enjoy the company, man. It's not often I surround myself with people in those circles, so I'm just happy to be here, man.
I appreciate it. Fun fact, he was supposed to be there, but he didn't want to come. So.
No, not that I didn't. I told him no.
Yeah, literally.
You missed out on a good time.
Yeah. I mean, I was there like a week later.
Oh, okay.
After that.
Oh, yeah, that's
2
right.
weeks later.
Yeah, you guys went right back.
It's just I have these things called kids, and
I brought mine.
We got to
Thank you. Okay, next excuse.
I'm not taking them out for.
You said kids.
school.
That was an excuse.
I can't take them out for that long.
That's what
from school.
grandparents are for.
It was 3 days.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the grandparents were taking care of them that week. I went to Jamaica. The planned trip.
Okay. Yeah. You just didn't love
By
them
the way,
enough.
they planned that trip after I told them my wedding was in Jamaica. So it was planned after the fact. Keep it coming.
Priorities. It's okay.
We have
It
this
happens.
conversation all the time.
You're my priority. That's all that matters.
Thank you,
I'm here
Eric.
for you.
I appreciate it.
Here
Yeah,
for you.
before he joined ownership, we have these planned like schedules. Like first weekend of February, awards party. Third weekend of February is whatever trip we planned for the company. And then here he comes. Hey guys, I love you all of a sudden. Will you please come to my wedding?
Good excuse. That was good.
To be fair, I invited you by default at the time. But now I really wish you were there because we run a relationship.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to run it back.
Yeah.
No, again.
It took a while,
Yeah. No, but I mean, this is an argument out of love. But really, this is how the flow's going to go today. Right?
Yeah.
There's nothing stuff. We were just having a conversation. We're just enjoying the time. But Eric, I've known you for a minute. We met through a really good mutual friend, Eli Miller. He introduced us a minute ago, and obviously after I met you, I met your wife Chelsea, your daughter, and then I learned everything about you. But I want the audience to understand kind of where you came from on the journey to where you are in the peak. And obviously, there's no top, right? It's going to keep going. There's mountains on top of the mountains. But tell me where you came from. Let's start from like being a BMW mechanic to now running like one of the best companies that has the most potential future, the Electrified Marina, and just kind of how you've gone through that whole world.
Dropped out of college, went to automotive trade school, got a scholarship program through BMW, was here at Checkered Flag BMW as a tech, doing really well there, making stupid good money. We bought a house in Ocean Lakes.
Wait, you were here doing that?
Yeah, Checkered Flag
gotcha.
BMW,
Okay.
man. Jersey was trade school for that, but we got back here, hustling, lived in an apartment. Chelsea was doing culinary at the Cavalier Golf and Yacht Club. I was one of the top techs over at BMW, usually fighting with some guys in the top three. Working my butt off, working 70 hours a week, or getting paid for 80 to 90. We were commission based, so you eat what you kill. So doing really well. We bought, I think it was after my second year there, I hit like six figures at like 21 years old, and we were just being stupid, picking up bar tabs. Everything was financed. They had nothing to show for it. And the shop foreman, thankfully, is like, hey, you're making way too much money to be pissing this stuff away. And he gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I read that book in a weekend. And then Cash Flow Quadrant the weekend after that.
Yep.
I'm like, Chelsea, we're going to buy a house every year and we're going to retire at 40. I was like, I'm not trying to do this normal life of living to, 65, retiring, and then you're, old and can't travel like you could have at 30s and 40s.
Right.
So we bought a house that year, lived in it like 9 months, and then Tesla came along. I had a buddy that was trying to convince me about electric cars. This was 2010. 10.
I was
He tried
about to ask
planting
what
the
year this
seed.
was. Okay.
So this was before anything was out. There was a Tesla Roadster, Nissan Leaf, and the Chevy Volt.
Got it.
And he's like, "Oh, you got to check these out." I'm like, "No way! I rode in a Prius. Like that's not for me." I had like a 500 horsepower BMW at the time.
Right.
And he convinced me when I was going to one of my trainings in Jersey for BMW. He's like, "Hey, swing by DC. We'll go for a ride." He said, "If you're impressed," or he said, "If you're not impressed, I got dinners on me." He said, "If you are impressed, I want your resume." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. Like I got nothing to lose." And of course, Tesla Roadster just absolutely blew my mind.
Boom.
Yeah. And I was going up to BMW for this training. It was like kind of tip of the spear training. They invited like the top master techs. They wanted feedback about stuff. And I remember getting out of that training and just not being impressed. And like BMW is supposed to be this innovative company. And I felt like Tesla was going to eat their lunch. And that was after riding in a Tesla Roadster for 10 minutes.
Wow.
And it's like, BMW doesn't know what the hell is going to happen to them.
So hold on. You went from driving in the ultimate driving machine, and you rode 10 minutes before the inception of Tesla, and that completely changed years
It ruined me. Absolutely ruined
BMW
me.
experience.
I remember getting back into my car, starting it up, twin turbo 335 IS with tune and everything on. It was a fun car. Or it was before I rode in that Roadster.
It was.
And afterwards, I mean, you're driving electric now, man. The torque just ruins you.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. And like nobody wants to work on their stuff. Like sure, if it's a hobby and you got time for that, cool. But like I'm not trying to work on my own cars. Like I don't have time for that. And so I got home from there and I remember going to work the next week and I just was not motivated. I'm like, I'm done. Like this is it.
Yeah.
And so I started the interview process with them and it was like a year's worth of different interviews and they weren't paying anything for money. I turned down 3 job offers from them. It was there was one in New York for $18 an hour to run a Manhattan store. Another job offer in LA, and they only had like 6 locations in the entire country at that time. And they were paying peanuts, but they were offering ridiculous stock options that could have turned into $40 million if I'd accepted that and jumped on it. But I literally couldn't afford to live off what they were paying. And they came back to me in 2012 and said, "Hey, we remember you had family in San Diego. We're going to open a location there. Are you interested?" I'm like, "You know what? I can live with my grandma. I sell all my stuff. We'll move back over there." And we'd been in our house in Ocean Lakes for like 9 months. And we put carpet down, painted the whole thing, did a backyard, like all this stuff. At the 9-month mark, I go to Chelsea and I'm like, "Hey, there's this company. Like, we got to go." And she's like, "Okay, now's the time to do it." And like everybody thought I was crazy. Everybody, all my coworkers. And like I liked my job or I did at the time. I gave them a 2-month notice.
Wow.
Like, "Hey, I'll train my replacement." Because like there was a chance Tesla was going to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
I didn't want to burn my bridges. So I gave them a 2-month notice and everybody was like, "You're crazy. No way. You're nuts. You're leaving a good thing. You've made it. You know, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I can come back to it if nothing happens." And like, I remember like both my parents were like, "Hey, now's the time to do it. Throw a Hail Mary.
Right.
See what happens."
How old were you again at the time?
22, 21.
Yeah, it's
I was
perfect
a
age.
kid.
Yeah.
No kids
And
yet.
then where in San Diego?
So right near Mira Mesa and Miramar area. And so let's take a few steps back. Navy brat growing up. Mom divorced when I was a kid. At 6 years old, I moved over here with stepdad. He raised me. Parents divorced. Junior year of high school, mom takes us back to San Diego. I graduate from Mira Mesa High School. And it just so happens that they're opening the Tesla location 2 miles away from where my grandma lives.
Gotcha.
So I was like, this is kind of meant to be. Like,
You had 2 homes, basically, right?
Right.
Okay.
And so we moved back there. Absolute chaos, working 80, 100-hour weeks. I mean, there were some times I work a month straight, talking 14, 16-hour days. I remember getting approved for our second house. And they said, "Oh, you're not approved. We couldn't factor in your overtime." I said, "Why not?" They said, "We need 2 years of consistency for it."
Right.
And I gave her, back in the day, I had ADP. I remember pulling it up on my BlackBerry, and I was like, "I will send you all my pay stubs." I sent her everything. She's like, "You know, you've averaged 88 hours a week for the last 2 years." I'm like, "It feels like more." But that's how it was back then.
Yeah.
You know, everyone was there for the mission. It was a startup. We were grinding. And there were times I had to fight to get my team time off just so we could do laundry. Like it was that bad. It was chaos back then.
I think you mentioned to me at the time you guys were stay at hotels.
I lived in hotels.
You lived in hotels, but then at the time, were you at the Tesla's like main like center was getting built, or did you have to travel and service all the cars, or a little bit of everything? Or
so this is 2012. The Model S wasn't even released yet.
Okay.
So I get to San Diego, or no, I'm on my way there, and they say, "Hey, San Diego's a little behind schedule. Do you want to take some time off, or you want to go to Costa Mesa to Orange County? We've got a store up there." And I look it up. It's like hour and a half drive. No, not a big deal. I was like, "You know what? I could take some time off. You know, how long are we talking?" They said, "Oh, zoning fell through on the building. It's gonna be a few months." And like, I remember I was in Texas at the time visiting my sister, and I was like, what am I doing?
Gosh.
Like, this was such a bad idea. What happened? And I was like, you know what? I guess I'll go to Orange County, you know? So I continued on across, and it's an hour and a half without traffic. It was like 100 miles door to door. Joke's on me. I had a little...
Joke's on me.
It was a 1975 BMW motorcycle, because I sold all my stuff. I had 4 cars when I lived here. I sold them all, and most of them were like BMWs of different types, because I was flipping cars back then. I've been hustling for a long time. And sold everything, kept a motorcycle, and I'd never split lanes before. I'd only had the motorcycle a year.
So that's why I never got a bike here, because it's like, what's the point of...
Right.
You can't split lanes.
That's it. And so you go there, and like, I remember going out there the first day, and I had to commute. I gave myself 3 hours, and I was almost late that day.
Damn.
And so it was a 3-hour commute each way in traffic. And I ended up, when guys would split lanes, I'd jump in behind them and ride with them. So there would be 10 bikes in front of me. And did that for like a month, and they were 2 months, and they were like, hey, we need help at the factory. And so like a car would get built, it'd go through quality control, and technicians would fix it. It was called end of line. And so I went there to go work on those, and I should have known, because I got a one-way ticket, and I lived up there for a few months.
Right.
And literally at the Marriott across from the factory. And back then, I mean, we were doing 100 cars a week was a big deal. I remember we hit 200 cars a week, and we took a picture because it was exciting. They do that in like a couple hours now.
Right.
You know, it's a whole nother world now.
Wow.
So anyway, lived there for a year, was trying to get back to the East Coast because we realized we couldn't afford San Diego. And so they said, oh, move over to Virginia. We'll open a service center here. And we buy a house in Norfolk, planning to move back here. Devonshire that you're selling right now. So I moved Chelsea in there. I get a room in Rockville, Maryland, and walking distance to the service center. I go help run that place. And I went from the service side to the management side, and I'm helping run that place. I'm up there 4 days a week, working, 16-hour days. It was 4.5 days a week. I'd come down half day on Saturday and spend 2 days with her. Well, we did that for 4 months. Come to find out we got a kid on the way. So I had to move Chelsea up there. And like back then, and even today, Tesla doesn't pay the most in salaries, but the benefits are amazing. Stock options are good, and that's where it makes up for it. And so like we couldn't afford anything nice up there, so we move into like the hood of Gaithersburg, which wasn't the best spot. Cars getting broken into and stuff. And so then we move again, and so we're in Germantown, and we moved again. But eventually we moved back down here. I told him, I was like, hey, we're spending X amount of dollars in monthly towing. What if I was a mobile technician and just contained as much as I could and saved down that bill? I could probably cut it in half. And we were spending like $60,000-$80,000 a month in tow bills. It was huge, because back then it was like a white glove service. If you had a Model S, you had a plan that covered that. So we were on the hook for it. And most of our towing was coming from Hampton Roads when we were in Maryland. Eventually they opened a Tyson's Corner store, which helped, and then a Richmond location which helped. But before that, I was covering the entire state. I had a big van, and I'd leave Monday mornings at like 4 a.m. for a 7 a.m. appointment in Charlottesville. Work on cars there, spend the night there, work on cars in Richmond the next day, spend the night there, and then do the Peninsula on the way back. And then Thursday, Friday would be like Hampton Roads, Outer Banks, and stuff.
So you're going to do those back then, right? They still do that to this day, but they have more service centers now, right?
Yeah.
So like when you're doing that back then and the service centers were limited and you get there and the problem's bigger and you can't fix it, one, you have a client that's not happy because they thought you were coming there and it took 2 weeks or whatever to get there. And now two, we're actually going to have to tow you to wherever it is.
It's a whole different animal, man.
Yeah.
But also, I was equipped to do work that they don't even do mobile anymore. I had a big stand-up van. I had an AC machine in there.
Okay.
I had ramps. I mean, I was doing struts, axles, you name it, in people's driveways. I didn't care, because the alternative is like a $2,000-$3,000 tow bill.
That's true.
A loaner car. It's like, I'd rather get my butt kicked for a day than ruin this person's day, lose face with them, and then add cost to it. And so we were called Ranger technicians back then, and we moved mountains.
Wow.
And it was pretty cool. They recognized what we did, because they didn't have any guidance for us. It's like, here's an empty van, good luck. And I got a company card, and I outfitted it with shelves and a ramp and lights and an inverter and everything. Well, then a year or two later, they're like, hey, it was like me and 2 guys in the country doing this. And my buddy Tony up in Michigan, and there was a guy named Jack in, I think it was in Texas or something. But they were like, hey, we need help we're going to develop this program, and it's going to be the mobile service program. So help them with that, help design the trucks and the cars and everything. It was super cool. Helped outfit them with toolboxes. And And then I did some charging infrastructure stuff with like level 2 chargers. So any level 2 chargers, not any, 90% of them around here, whether it's the mall, at Pembroke Mall, downtown Norfolk, all those parking garages, First Landing State Park, West Round Brewing, Mermaid Winery. Like that was me door knocking, getting chargers installed. And back then, Tesla was giving them away for free, and it was hard to give them away for free.
Right.
It's pretty funny.
No one believed in it.
Right. Everyone thought it was a fad.
Yeah.
Or they thought it was a scam because I'm giving it away for free. And there's like no contract, we'll cover install, like all of it.
Like bullshit. No way.
Too good to be true. Right. I was like, all right, fine. We'll charge you a couple $100, whatever it takes.
Right.
So I did charging infrastructure for a little. Eventually, 2018, we got busy enough down here. We opened a service center.
That's when so he was the GM of the service center down here.
Okay.
When they first opened, before the military highway one, when they bought the building a few years later. So that was probably a breath of fresh air for you. When you came down here, like, all right, stability finally in some way. But that's also when Tesla started really taking off.
That's what it was. The Model 3 came out.
Right.
We called it production hell, man. Like the production volume went through the roof, but quality tanked. Absolutely tanked.
Before I left California, so my wife's from the Bay Area, and it seemed like I saw more Teslas than I saw any luxury cars.
We called it the Silicon Valley Camry at the time, and it's like they were just everywhere.
Yeah, it was 2015ish, I would say. It was just
and
like
now,
Teslas
like
everywhere.
you can't throw a rock without hitting an electric car over there. It's crazy, and it's getting to that point here. But I remember back in the day, man, like, and even my daughter, we used to get excited when we'd see a Tesla because this was like 2013, 14. There was like one charging station all on Hampton Roads, and we'd like get excited and wave to them. And 90% of the time, I knew who they were because every single Tesla owner in Hampton Roads had my cell phone number because I was coming to their house. I was working on their cars in their driveway.
You know, it's funny. You said this to me a minute ago, but being that mobile, like I always talk about getting in the room, right? Getting in the room is use what you can or the life that you came from for the next chapter, whatever you want to do. I talk about this all the time. In real time, it might have sucked. All the driving, meeting these people, you never knew how you can cultivate relationships. Lucky for you, you can cultivate relationships fairly well. You actually met a mentor doing this of you to this day, on top of other business acquaintances that you've now been able to develop, the next chapter of the Pinzons, for lack of better words, with leaving Tesla. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the crazy part. And that's what I try to harp. I used to train the technicians that would come on. I was like, hey, the biggest and best part of this job is the people you meet.
Yeah.
I have met some of the richest people in Virginia, whether they've got an estate in Charlottesville or they're coming by helicopter to their house here. And those people became friends, I'd have a drink with them on their back deck afterwards, or we'd go for a helicopter ride.
Yep.
And so, like, those people have become investors, hard money lenders, mentors, like, you name it. And most of those people came from nothing, So they're like, they would see. And, like, it wasn't intentional when I first met my mentor, but I had a real estate book in my front seat. And he's like, oh, you into real estate? I was like, yeah, I'm trying to be. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, I've got 2 rentals. I'm trying to get a third. He's like, you're not trying to be. You got 2 rental properties. That's more than most people.
Right.
And I was like, all right. And he says, and his last house was deceiving. It was, like, shaped in a V. And I'm just at the front of it, 2-car garage. He had a Model X and a Porsche or something, which, like, isn't crazy. That's the average garage I got in. And he's like, oh, if you've got a couple minutes, I'd like to share some stuff about real estate with you. And this was like a Saturday. I didn't even have to go and help this guy, but like his charge cable was stuck in his car. So he was kind of stranded with the car. But to save face, I'm like, hey, Chelsea, like, sorry, I got to go help this guy. It'll be quick. There's probably some debris stuck in there. Yeah. That's all it is. So I didn't even have to take this. It could have been the Richmond guy that went to help him, and I jumped on it.
Right.
I called Chelsea after I fixed the car. I was like, hey, he's going to chat with me about real estate. Call me in 20, 30 minutes. It might be my way out of this. I'm not sure how fruitful this is going to be. But, like, at that time, I was working 70, 80 hours a week. So my Saturdays were priceless. That's family time. And so she calls me in 20 minutes. And, like, I remember my eyes were glazed over. He had 6 screens with spreadsheets and all kinds of stuff, just showing me everything. And I was just taking notes.
Yep.
And I learned more in an hour with him that I'd absorbed in the last year's worth of podcasts and everything, and that was a cool thing. You said it might have sucked in the moment, but like I always looked forward to waking up. I always loved my job, and I was driving 8 to 10 hours a day and working on cars another 6 to 8 hours a day. I was absorbing podcasts, audiobooks.
Right.
I crushed like 400 episodes of Bigger Pockets. I remember I found out about Bigger Pockets like 5 years later than I should have.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna catch up. I'm gonna start at episode 1. And I ran them at like 1.5 to 2 times the speed. And I pick up stuff that quick. And I was just driving, just crushing them. And between that and audiobooks, I just absorbed everything, self-help, everything. I remember I'd treat myself on Fridays after my last job, and I'd listen to music on the way home.
Yep.
But that was it. I was trying to capitalize on that time and make it productive.
So and you did Tesla for at least a decade.
9 years.
Let's just call it a decade for lack of a better word. A good chunk of your life you did that. And then you came to a point where it just made sense to bow out. It came to a point.
Let's take a step back. So 2014, we moved back here, bought that house, bought Devonshire.
Yep.
That was our second rental property. And that's we had Riley, and we were getting ready to. It was like 9 months went by, and when I started with Tesla, I got granted some stock options. It was only 400 shares. It was peanuts at the time, like a $20,000 bonus.
Right.
When I took a 60% pay cut to go to this company, which was trash.
Right.
Back then, a year goes by, my first allotment of stocks vests. It's 100 shares, and I got the stock at $18 a share.
Yep.
And it had like doubled, and like I didn't know anything. So I'm chatting with 3 different financial advisors that I'd reached out to from different family members. There's always people, oh yeah, I've got a good guy, I've got a money guy, whatever. And they're like, sell it, you need to short it, this company's going under. I'm like, all right, I claim your profits, I doubled my money. I sold year 1, sold what I could on year 2, and year 3 comes around and the stocks went up 7 times, and I'm like, I'm done selling. These guys don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Right.
But it took that long for me to realize it. It got to a certain point where it's like, hey, 90% of my net worth's in Tesla. Let's just diversify that. Start splitting it up. And so 2014, we bought Devonshire. And then a year after that, we bought another house, another rental. And I sold some stock for that. And then we got the fourplex over there in Ocean View. And right after that is when I met my mentor. He's like, hey, stop selling your stock. That's going to be worth a lot of money. They have margin loans for this.
Yeah.
Don't over leverage yourself. But if you can do it to the right percentage and know your numbers and make sure everything's right, it would be better to borrow against it, use it as leverage. And so we did that with the 10 unit, you know? And so we bought that 10 unit, I don't know, 2019, 2018.
Right before the boom.
Yeah, right. And so we got it. It was a mess. We inherited some bad tenants. You still ended up picking up a couple of them.
Yeah.
But we bought it for $700. I took out a margin loan to buy it for the down payment.
This one Newport News.
Hampton.
Buckrow
I
area.
think I know which one it is.
It's 5 duplexes right next to each other.
Yeah.
And
I've talked about this before with you guys too.
We sunk it was probably 150,000 into it, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, turning it over, kicking out some deadbeats. And this was right in the middle, right before COVID, because that's when it became almost impossible to evict people. And that's what we inherited.
Oh, okay.
So we bought this place that was an absolute mess, turned it around, got the rents up. I think we doubled the rent rolls, and then and refinanced it and pulled all our money back out and paid off those margin loans. So. I learned what to do when I met my mentor, and he started giving me guidance and everything. And I mean, he was holding me to another level that nobody else did. And everyone else like, oh, you're doing great, keep it up. And here he is. He's like, hey, you said you were going to set this goal, and like you didn't hit it. I'm like, oh yeah, I've been busy. This and this happened. He's like, those sound like excuses.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
He's like, do you want to do better, or you want to stay where you're at?
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. And then he says something along the lines of, if you're not going to take this seriously, you're going to get a bill. I usually charge $300 an hour.
Okay.
And I'm like, yes, sir. Like, noted. I'm not going to abuse this anymore. And to this day, I've met with him almost every month, unless we're out of the country or something doesn't line up. But still friends with him to this day. I just did breakfast last week with him.
What was a good turning point though? So we fast forward now. Yeah. We're like in COVID, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't leave. What year did you leave Tesla?
So it was 2021. It got to the point where we kind of hit financial independence. I got big into fire. We were wiping down our debt and our monthly payments. We got a roommate, you know, and here we are. We had, I don't know, probably 15 doors, and we realized we weren't using a guest bedroom. And I was like, Chelsea, I could afford to quit my job if we rent this room out, And that was the sacrifice we were willing to make. And most of this time, we've been frugal. We didn't get the big house and the Range Rover like a lot of people do, and we were still very frugal. She to this day, we didn't even pay to sit next to each other. Like our goal is to have enough money to where we feel comfortable to fly first class. But like the step before that is to pay the extra $40 per flight to sit next to each other.
Correct.
Because right now we don't do that. But she's frugal. I'm the risky one. There's always a yin and yang. I've been with her. It'll be 19 years now.
Yep. Shout out to Chelsea, by the way. Shout out to Chelsea.
Wouldn't be here without her. She's my rock, man. I'm getting emotional talking about
Stop crying, Eric. Stop crying. All right.
But yeah, she's the conservative one. She was my underwriter for all the deals.
Yeah.
And I mean, she went to school for culinary, and it got to the point she was a bartender. And when we moved back down here, she was working at New Realm. And it got to the point where she's like, I would find the deals, I'd close on the deals, make sure we got a good deal, and then it would need renovations because half the stuff we were buying was, needed work.
Right.
And I was dropping all that on her plate, and we were doing the work. We were out there swinging hammers, doing the flooring. I was doing all the work in the beginning. And so she got exposed to a lot of it. Then I made her start playing GC. I was like, hey, I'm too busy with work. I need you managing these guys. Yeah. And so it got to the point where I was like, you got to quit your job. Like, we don't have time for that shit. And manage our real estate portfolio we're building and stay on tabs with this. And to this day, she has. And we had a property manager for some of our higher maintenance stuff. I don't know. She doesn't like the phone call in the middle of the night and there's a leak kind of thing, which nobody does. That's the part of the passive income people don't talk about. You
get the call.
Right, yeah. 4th of July on a Friday night and the AC goes out or something.
Yep.
But so we've dealt with all those nightmares. We've dealt with our share of evictions. But it got to the point where we rented out a room, and we just brought our monthly debt schedule or just our expenses down as low as we could. And it got to the point with Tesla where, like, I didn't need the job. And that's when that relationship changes, man.
Yeah.
Because it got to the point where Tesla was in a big growth period. It was like 2020 when I hit financial independence. And they would give these orders down from the top. And it's like, I'm in the room with these managers or in a Zoom call. And all of us, man, this is BS. Why are they doing this? And everyone was afraid to speak up. Nobody wanted to lose their job. Nobody wanted to push back. I'm like, screw this. I'm like, hey, why are we doing this? Like, give us a reason. This doesn't make any sense to all of us here. And so it got to the point where I'd be the one speaking up, and they would be messaging me. It'd be in the middle of an all-hands-on meeting. Sometimes Elon would be on it, and they'd be like, hey, Eric, like, what are we going to say? Like, what are you going to say? Like, this, you got to say something. I'm like, I'd raise my hand in the meeting, and I was like, yeah, can you elaborate on this? And I would be, and like, people were like, bro, are you trying to get fired? Like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't care, and if it's BS, I'm gonna give some pushback because like this has got to make sense.
But I mean, you're doing more than one thing. You're protecting your people. You're being a leader, but because you were with them for so long, you almost had like the FU money that you knew you can just walk away if you wanted to, but you still liked what you did, and you put so much time into it, right? But it's that weird crossroad. Like you almost reached a peak at that point in time. That is like, all right, what's my next challenge? Because their whole goal was to get to the everyone's typical goal is to get financial independence.
Yeah, it's your goal until you pass that finish line, and then it's like,
why am I still here? Why am I still running the race?
Why am I still running?
And so we hit that in 2021 and didn't know what was going to happen. I gave them, I think it was like a 3-month notice, and I was like, hey, and I was running the number 1 service center in the country.
Yeah,
it was to the point that they audited us because they thought I was cooking the books with surveys and stuff, and like we were messing up just as many cars and situations as anybody else, but I was just good at communicating. And I remember my team would be like, hey man, we're doing this windshield, and we scratched his A-pillar. I'm like, all right, no big deal. I call this guy. I was like, hey, your brand new, P100D Model X. Like, we messed up your paint. I was like, but by the way, I noticed you had a paint chip on your fender. Looked like from some, road grime or something. Like, we're going to get that painted too. I know you wanted to try out the S. We're going to get you a loaner. We'll have it done in a week. I've got the best paint shop in the area. And, like, we just handled every situation like that. Communicate as fast as possible.
See, but was it we or was it you? Because you're only as good as your leader, right? So if you're leading from the top and you're training them to do it that way, would you say that because of the way that you learned how to handle other situations, getting up to this point of that leadership, mind you, you're 30 years old running a department.
Everyone's older than me.
Right,
like,
everyone's older than you.
We had a young crew too.
So, I mean, you're rocking and rolling, and you just have a way to deliver the message that even if it's bad news, it sounds digestible, that anybody would accept it and walk away smiling.
And so that actually happened to me in Rockville. I had a manager there, and I don't know if he was his form of training or he didn't want to deal with it, but it's like, oh, you're assistant manager, you get to deal with escalations. It's like, wait, shouldn't you handle a lot of the big sensitive stuff? And so I would get some of these cases across my desk, and it's like, hey, this car's been at the body shop for 6 months.
Yeah.
They've sent the wrong parts. They damaged it a second time. This guy's threatening to sue us. Try and save this. I'm like, come on, man.
Right.
But I got good at doing those.
Yeah.
And like I would prep for these conversations and get all nervous and worked up. And like the worst case scenario, he's going to say this, this, and this. And I'd have all my counterpoints ready to talk to him and stuff. And I would crush these conversations. And so now, anytime anything goes wrong with even to this day with my team, anybody get hurt? No?
Nope.
Did we damage anything? Okay, if we did, how much is it going to cost? Did we lose face with anybody? We can learn. That's
You're
it.
good.
It's a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's how, with this company and when I was at Tesla, if I yell at someone, well, there's a lot of things that went wrong. I don't raise my voice at anybody because it doesn't solve anything. And I've had managers that do that. They're throwing stuff. Like, I'm just not that guy. And You mentioned leading from the top, and I remember getting this service advisor. She came from hospitality, didn't know cars at all. I didn't need her to. It was kind of nice she didn't. She was just relaying the message from the technician to the customers. And I expressed and ingrained everything that I did when I was running things. And simple things like, hey, if this customer is asking you for updates, you're not updating them enough.
Right.
However they want to be updated, you need to find that out. You want a text message every single day and it'd be like, hey, we didn't forget about you. We're still waiting on your part. Talk to you tomorrow. And that's all it took sometimes. And then it didn't matter if they had a week and a half delay because you updated them every step of the way.
True.
It's not hard.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, especially on my team, like communication is the simplest thing and people mess it up more than anything else.
That's true.
Now, quick question. You had a Tesla. Do you have a Tesla?
Not anymore.
Ironically, he's the reason why I got Teslas.
That's why I was kind of.
I've owned a couple dozen Teslas. He bought one from me.
I bought one
while
from him.
ago.
By the way, we just sold that last week.
Nice.
No joke.
Yeah.
And we still made a profit finally, even with everything going on. But we had no issues.
Yeah.
Like it was reliable. It was amazing. Wifey loved it. We just now want a different taste.
Yeah.
Of,
And so-
of EV world.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
now we have a Rivian now.
hooked.
We have a Rivian now.
You're hooked.
Which
And
is
I just
nice.
need a service center down here. That's the only thing I
Dude,
need.
that's why I don't have one right now. That's
Yeah.
why I sold mine. I had a Rivian for
Yeah.
a year. It was amazing.
I was gonna ask you since well, I don't know if you want to put it out there, but what do you drive now?
So I've got a Ford Lightning.
Yep.
I've got no
Okay,
filters,
just-
man.
Yeah.
I've got a Ford Lightning, but
I was curious if he was gonna say BMW, like electric car.
we tow too much right now. I have to have a
Okay.
truck.
Yeah.
But I had the Rivian before, and
Yeah.
it was too pretty of a truck for my employees to use.
That's
They dented
true.
like one tailgate, and it was like $1,800 later.
Right. Like, fuck that. Yeah.
Right. So I've got the Ford Lightning now. It's a beast. It has so much torque. I absolutely love it. It's not good on long distance, but 99% of our towing's local. And
Right.
it's like 90% of the blue collar guys out there, whether you're a plumber,
Yep.
any blue collar guy, most of the time they work locally. They're not going on road trips every day, So most
Correct.
people, it's a mental thing. And it's funny because it's everything I learned at Tesla, so much of it applies to boats. Whether it's the range anxiety, the charging, the early adoption headaches.
It's the same thing. You're just on water.
That's it. And it's like
Yeah.
you talk to the average boater in Broad Bay, Lincoln Bay, and it's like, oh, how often you go to Cape Charles? How often you go to
Yeah.
Newport News or Portsmouth or, Coin Jock or any of this stuff? Like, how often are you going out past the Lesnar Bridge?
Right.
Oh, you haven't yet and you've owned your boat 2 years? Oh, so you do 10 miles in this loop and you anchor out all day long at the
whatever
sandbar, at the
restaurant?
beach.
Yeah.
You're at Chicks, you're at Dockside,
And that's the
Surf
first time I saw
Rider.
an electric boat.
Oh,
was,
nice.
was
Surf
that
Rider
Chicks-
over there?
It probably came from him, by the way.
Probably. I mean, it looked badass.
Yeah.
was
So
the
that's
first
probably an X-Shore. We've had those in the area for a while.
Yeah.
But so anyway, leave Tesla in 2021. Didn't know what I was going to do. We went on like a month and a half long road trip.
But you didn't need to know. That's the thing. You were good.
That's it. And it was like, we'll see what happens. And I did some crazy stuff. We invested in a plant-based deli,
Yep.
Honest Pastures, still over there off Great Neck. We ended up exiting out of that recently just to focus on this. I didn't have any time to dedicate to it. Spent a lot of money trying to open up solar fields,
Yep.
solar farms. Like one point, we had 2,000 acres under contract. Me
Yep.
and one other Tesla buddy throwing our Tesla money together.
Good idea, though.
It was, and it would have worked out if people didn't think the solar panels were going to steal all the sun and not leave any for the crops.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff came up at like city council
Wow.
meetings. It was mind-boggling.
Small minds.
Yeah, there's not going to be enough sun left up over for the farms. I'm like, oh, this is what we're against. But anyway, I was looking to invest into some smaller apartment complexes. Met a new business partner, Aaron, who I'm business partners with on the boat business and the marinas that we have. She was at SpaceX for 10 years, grew up on boats, equally crazy, like bred by Elon. We're equally maniacal. And it's dangerous because like when you put problems in front of people like that, it's like, oh, we've got to drive cross country and do these 3 stops and get all this done in 6 days. Like, all right, we got that.
Right.
And like we would move mountains. I remember this girl, she sold a boat in Miami, but was flying out of town like 4 days later. And she towed with a Tesla down to Miami just in time to catch a flight to like China or something. But
Sound like
she's,
Aaron.
Yeah, as crazy as I am. And we were looking for apartment complexes. We ended up, she found this small marina, the mini marina over there. And she's like, hey, you're the only one I know crazy enough to get into this. I know we're looking for apartment complexes. This place is too cool to not look into. And like, it was listed for like 1.5, only had 16 slips, a quadplex on site that we thought when we were buying it.
Right.
And come to find out, it was zoned as a triplex, and there's a ton of zoning problems. We lost money for like a year because we couldn't do any rentals there. We ended up buying it. We were trying to do houseboats there. City of Norfolk said no. Oh, we're finally making progress on that, by the way.
Good,
for Willoughby.
finally.
We looked at it. She said, what about a boat rental business? I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not dealing with gas boats. I've heard of those headaches. She's like, no, there's some electric boats out there. And this was 2022. And we looked around, found some boats, and we are like, all right, this can work, but why is nobody doing this? You know, there was like 4 or 5 like rental fleets out there in the country. And it's like, if we can charge as much as the guy renting the ugly pontoon, charge him for the same price.
Right.
It's $8 a day in electricity, and we have no maintenance.
Yeah.
So like our overhead, our operating cost should be like 80% less.
Right.
Like this should be a home run. And so we dipped our toe in the water with rentals, and that quickly turned into sales. And people were, the manufacturers making these things weren't doing a good job of getting the word out. So then we started selling them, and it's like we were limited in terms of resources, and if we focused it on sales, we'd make more money than if we focused it on rentals.
Yep.
And so we kind of shifted the business model a little bit. Last year we did rentals and sales, and we're bootstrapped right now, self-funded, and I wiped out my life savings. So we bought that little marina. We're doing due diligence, stopped by every single marina in Hampton Roads, and we were like, hey, can I talk to a manager or an owner? We're getting ready to buy a marina, and didn't know what we were doing. And she ended up finding Willoughby, and marina's in disrepair. At one point it was big, 280, 290 slips, restaurant on site, office space on site. And we found it off market. And it was one of those deals like, we don't know what we're going to do with it, but let's get it under contract.
Right.
And this is while we're under contract for the first marina. So we're under contract for 2 marinas. I'm getting ready to wipe out my life savings to jump into these. And we're in due diligence, figuring stuff out, dealing with zoning nightmares on both of them, title problems with deeded boat slips on one. And
Easy problems. Easy.
nightmares, all expensive, all attorneys, like everything, just bleeding money. And mind you, at one point, I had over $1 million in the bank worth of Tesla stock. And so we're slowly dwindling that down with real estate and everything else. And then we're under contract for both of these marinas. And I had an old family friend. My mom used to babysit her and her sister. She was in Girl Scouts with my sister, and we kind of kept in touch over the years. And, you know, I lost a little bit of connection moving and coming back, but like we'd go to a barbecue or a pool party once or twice a year.
Yep.
And she hits me up and she's like, hey, you're one of the only business savvy people I know they are selling the kids' gymnastics gyms that I've worked at for 8 years. And she says they're giving first dibs to the employees, but obviously nobody's got the money for it. Are you interested? And Chelsea's sitting there. She's like, no way, not right now. And I'm like, you know what? I was like, I think it's worth the conversation. Chelsea like turns around and walks away. And like, I just wanted to analyze that deal. I'd never looked at a gym before, a membership base. And I was like, oh, let's look at the numbers. Whatever. I'll put in an LOI for that. No commitment. Like, let's have the conversation. And then we looked into it, and it's like, well, you got 500 to 700 kids paying $100, $120 a month.
Yeah.
It could be pretty lucrative. But your big headache is staffing. You've got 20, 30 part-time high school employees, college kids in there, and it's a nightmare. And that's why the owners were selling. They were tired. They'd been there a long time. And it was kind of cool, though, because we're buying this gym with my friend, and she approached it as, hey, not sure how much money we can put towards it. I'd love to be part of it somehow, even if it's a small percentage. And I was like, no. I need you to have some skin in the game with this. I need you to be committed because you've got the know-how right now, you know. Okay. And we ended up getting an SBA loan. Only had to put 10% down. They got a loan for the money, and now she's a whole change of life. She's making good money. She's a small business owner now. She just joined EO with us. Nice. And like, so complete trajectory change from being a stay-at-home mom, bringing in very little money to making, almost 6 figures. So
what you've done so far, when you left Tesla in 2021, in a nutshell, mind you took time to reflect, because you didn't know what you wanted to do, but you didn't need to know at that time. You ended up investing into more real estate in some way, shape, or form. You invested into other businesses, good and bad, in some way, because the theory is you're gonna take losses, you're gonna win, but as long as you win more than you lose, you're still winning.
Yeah,
to
I
be
call
very
them
clear,
lessons,
right?
man.
Right, there's lessons.
Even
it's
if
not
it
even a
costs
loss.
you $80,000, there's a lesson. I learned what not to do. It's a hard lesson, but you're not gonna forget that kind of lesson.
Hell no. And then now too, you own a marina. You never say you do that. And then you own another marina. That has Electrified Marina in it, which is the hub of what you're focusing on right now. By the way, zoom in on that one for me right there, just so we can see that, because Electrified Marina right there is the main thing. You can see it on his shirt. He's been wearing it the whole time. Electrified Marina, in a nutshell, is Tesla's on water.
That's it, man. And so we represent, we ended up jumping into this, and we didn't know it was going to get this big and this deep. In the beginning, it was like, oh, we'll just sell some electric boats. This is cool. Nobody's doing it. And now we're getting requests. I have a meeting with someone internationally 2 to 3 times a week. These people are like, hey, we're starting this boat company. We're going to build electric boats, and we want you to be the U.S. distributor. You guys, you look like you're crushing it. You look, you're the best choice for us in the U.S. And like, they don't know I got like 8 employees, and we are like learning and being scrappy and resourceful every single day, but nobody else is doing it. We got a head start on everybody.
But that's how every company starts.
That's it.
That's what I'm saying. And you're going to every boat show that you need to. You're showing
and
face.
You own the marina.
And,
yeah.
And it helps. You own the land. In this case,
because
you own the water.
that was even going back to Tesla, that was always the doubt. Like, why buy this car? There's nowhere to charge this freaking thing.
Right.
Like, that was the number one question.
Infrastructure.
Like, cool car, cool concept. But where am I going to charge it at?
Right.
See, and that's where I think
that's the source of the problem, I would say.
That's where you're going to start expanding on too, because it's not necessarily just the boats and the selling of it. If you can develop the infrastructures behind what, and I already know you're thinking about this. It's like Electrified Marina is on the trajectory of taking off, and that's pretty much 100% your focus now of what you're doing. Outside, there's a few other ancillaries. Don't get me wrong, but like you've been ham on this one. But to be fair, you'll never be able to get out of the EV world. It's in your blood.
Yeah,
it's literally in your lifeline now, dude.
And that's the problem, man. It's like I'm dealing with a lot of big high level stuff, negotiating contracts, distribution rights, all this stuff. And then I'll get a request, and they're like, "Hey, we need some volunteers for this Earth Day event." I'm like, "Okay, I need to be there. I need people there." I mean, you see me at the auto shows. I still go to the auto shows. We have a huge, 2,000 square foot space full of cars and boats now, just preaching the word, man. And the problem with electric cars and boats is education and awareness. People are so clueless. They're oblivious about 90% about electric cars because they're spoon-fed from the media, from big oil, from everything.
Yep.
And they think they know about it. And the worst part is there's these people on social media shouting from the rooftops. They're the loudest ones on there, and they're clueless. They have no idea.
Yeah.
Oh, these batteries are going to pile up in landfills. Like, I get companies reaching out to me to pay me for batteries to recycle them. I just got an email yesterday. They're like, "Hey, you got any batteries?" I'm like, "Bro, we haven't had any go bad. I have not had to dispose of a battery in 3 years. We've done some lead acids for some stuff we've upgraded, some like 12-volt car batteries.
Right.
But these things aren't going bad. They're not dropping like flies like everybody thinks.
They have same comparable warranties, like X amount of miles fully replaced or whatever, like a Tesla Rivian.
So it's to the point now with a lot of these 48-volt batteries, these guys were kept up in their warranties because they didn't care because these batteries aren't going bad. They're up to like 10, 11-year warranties now,
point.
unlimited miles.
That's valid.
And it's like, that's not a problem for them. And now we've got some people buying bigger boats, $200,000-$300,000 boats, and they've got like 3 to 5 year warranties, and they're like, I need more peace of mind. And it's in our next quarter, we're going to develop a underwriting and a warranty program to sell extended warranties to these things because we know they're not going to go bad. Half these people won't own their boats long enough anyway.
That's actually a very good point.
So here's a question, talking just to the infrastructure point.
Mm-hmm.
Are you also looking into maybe like installing those stations like at a Chicks, the bars?
Yeah. So
freaking mobile boat to go charge somebody.
So that's half the conversation. And it's even easier on water because most marinas have electricity. The 30 amp or 50 amp shore power, that's what our boats need to charge off of.
Okay.
Every parking spot in America doesn't have charging, but 80-90% of boat slips at marinas have electricity already. So a lot of that is already solved. The fast charging side of it is what we're working on. We've partnered with a company, and if I sell X amount of boats in an area, they will put in a free fast charging station, and it's like $100,000 install.
Damn right.
But that will help me sell more boats. It'll help them get the word out there, and they just want their charging station that's like a pedestal. They just want a lease for that spot for 20 years because that's what it's going to take them to make their money back. And so I'm in discussion with probably a dozen places right now about putting charging stations.
I think he's going to be back into solar here soon.
No, I don't want to. I'm trying to slow down, man. I am tired. We've been hustling a long time. And that's what a lot of people always say, like, must be nice. I'm like, you know what? It
I
is.
hate that.
Like,
I hate
you
that.
hustle as hard as I did for as long as I did, you're going to be doing a lot better because it's a lot easier to make money now. People are just lazy.
Yeah, that's the
one thing we
must
can
be
agree on.
nice.
I hate that statement.
I
man.
hate that. Yeah, sure. Like I've been grinding from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. or whatever it is.
Work as
every
hard as me.
day.
You're going to get somewhere. I promise you.
My one of my mentors, Don London, radio legend, the 70 degrees and sunny, nothing makes him mad. He's always this calm, collective, amazing. I meet with him probably like once a quarter as well. And we always talk about that must be nice statement because that must be nice statement, his reply is like, you know what? It is.
Same.
It really is. What else do you want to know?
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
And because it's usually not a positive thing after the fact, right?
Yeah.
So that my reply to that now is like, it is. In a nice way, smiling. Because in theory, when someone says that, it's kind of like a backhanded slap for
That's
some
what it
reason.
is,
That's
man.
really, it's like a pimp slap,
Yeah.
yo. Like, for what? What are you doing so wrong that you have to try to make me feel down for something that I work my ass off for?
Yeah, my
I'll
reply
wait.
now.
Matter of fact, I don't give a shit. I'm out. Like, like there's no reason behind that. But anyways, you say that's like one of the things that just gets on my.
Yeah.
It's a trigger word.
My reply now, it's in my auto text, so I can just touch the middle button. It knows it, and I says, you know what, it is. And if you change your attitude, you'll get there too.
Boom.
It's
Blocked.
like
No.
Yeah, right. I love it though, because the haters, their engagement on our social media, wherever it is. I've been fighting them on Reddit this morning, and their engagement helps the algorithm, so more people see my
That's
message.
true. That's
like,
very
I
true.
will bring on the haters, man. I had one that went viral, and it was a spoof, man. I put like the truck nuts on my truck, and it's up to like 4 million views.
Right.
I've gotten 3 leads from that thing. Like, let's keep it going.
One of the shorts that went wild was Matt Salway, who's our #1 agent. And basically, it was just a quick short, and it's like, you know what? When you go to work and you're out there taking a cigarette break, I'm working.
Yeah.
When you're doing this, I'm working. When you get home and you play your video games, I'm working. When you sit down and watch TV, I'm working.
That's it, man.
And it went so wild. That's the truth.
Yeah, and like I try not to embrace the hustle culture. Like I was a workaholic for a bit at Tesla. Almost cost me my relationship. Thankfully, I saved it and everything. Right. And so like there's definitely something to be said for work-life balance. But even now, like I'll go to bed with my wife. I let her fall asleep. As soon as I can tell she's asleep, I'm over on my phone working, getting stuff done. And like half the guys I'm talking to are in Europe or Asia, so like it's their peak time.
Yeah, you got to, dude. But Chelsea gets it now, though. That's the thing. I mean, she gets it, but the thing is, too, at least you're not at a 9 to 5 and then still having to do that. Being the entreploy, what I always call it, right?
Yeah.
That's the difference. Like, you can still, in theory, you can control your time. I say in theory because, and you're working more than you ever did before, but at least it's on your own stuff. But there's no such thing as work-life balance.
It's like, you physically get home, but are you home?
No, no. It's
right, and then that's where that comes in. It's like you go to the beach with the kids. Are you really present?
Right. And that's the struggle.
That's the tough balance, and it's like you feel bad. It's hard to get out of that.
It is.
And you feel bad because you're not engaged or because you're not working.
Yeah, and like the goal is to delegate as much as possible, put systems in place, and like now I've got a full-time assistant.
Yeah.
She saves my butt every single day.
Good.
And here, once we can hire some more people, I'm going to get even more off my plate because it ebbs and flows. You go through phases, and there's times where it's like, hey, I don't need to be on my phone. But then there's times it's like, hey, I've got to take this. This is a lead that's going to turn into something big that we need. So, I'm playing salesman right now for the company, so I can't let phone calls go.
See, but that was almost like, I think that wasn't your initial role, but you had to do it if that's what we talked. But because you know what you're going to do. And this is, if you can set that culture, you can be the lead from the front like that, at least for the next 12 to 24 months, while you hopefully can train somebody in there to do it at least at 80% as good as you can then you can breathe a bit because now the system's rolling, right?
That's it, man.
But it's just like you're starting a company from brand new, bro. It's all part of the game.
So that's the... It's funny because like talking about peak life and Chelsea's like, oh, if they only knew. So we wiped out our entire life savings. I have $0 in the stock market and put it into these 2 marinas, these 2 kids' gyms, the boat business, and then the rest of the real estate that we ended up buying. And so like we're back to hustle mode. You know, we're not sitting fat and happy. Like, yeah, cool. We have a lot of net worth. We've got high equity. But you can't eat equity.
You can't access that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Cash flow is the name of the game, man.
It is.
And so we're back to grinding right now, and I hate it. I want to slow down. No, I'm tired, man. Like I tell people, like when you were in your 20s having fun, screwing off, like I was working 80, 90 hours a week. I've been working since I was 6 years old.
Right.
Like I used to get picked on in school for not having name brand stuff, and every single day I'd work. My first job at 6 years old, I was at the 24th Street stage at the oceanfront. They had a trailer next to that sold popcorn, sodas, and cotton candy. And I'd been there with my stepdad every single day after school. Whenever there was big events on the weekends, AMF, the marathons, all that stuff, we were down there at the concession stands working that.
Nice.
And like I saved up that money. I started cutting grass before I could barely push a mower. 8, 9 years old. And I mean, I had 20 lawns under contract by the time I was 10 years old. I had employees.
Yeah.
And like my dad was taxing me. He was charging me to use his shed, his equipment, all this stuff. And I mean, it got to the point, and like shout out to my stepdad, Roy. Like I have so much to thank him for. But it got to the point where he was charging me to use all his equipment. I bought all my own equipment. And I was like, Dad, I'm going to buy a shed. Because like, here's my ROI. Like you're charging me 20%. If I can get that down to 10%, now my money gets better. And he's like, no, you learned. You can keep the shed back there.
But that was the lesson
That's
that needed to
great.
get learned. And little did you know, that's what he was doing.
That's
right?
it. And like my parents, I learned what not to do with money. Like I lived through a couple bankruptcies.
Right.
I remember our TV getting repoed,
Right.
like from Rent a Center.
Rent a center, yes.
So like I've had a similar fairy tale that most entrepreneurs come from. You know, there's a couple addictions thrown in there, some bankruptcies, and but I tell people I learned what not to do with money.
So what's the grit? What's that motivation? And let's not use the cliche statements of family as your why. Like, what is your why that you keep going to get to your next peak at this stage of your life?
You know, it's funny. We were going through like big, hairy, audacious goals in this mentor group, and talking about like what's next, what's the 10-year, there's a book called I think it's Psychology of Money that talks about like what's the goalpost, like when are you done, what's it, and like my next steps are getting a big house on the water, not big house. I want a 4-bedroom house. It's we want something on the water with a pool and a boat in the backyard. It'll probably come the next couple years.
Yep.
I want a nice car, and after that, I'm going to give away as much money as possible, whether it's to halfway houses, to there's a couple like nonprofit automotive shops out there that help people that are from lower means.
Okay.
But I'm going to give it all away, and I can't wait.
Damn right. That's a good goal.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. There's so many people get all this money, and they don't, like, don't get me wrong, like, I might have a yacht one day, but that's when it's going to be like 10% of me, and like I'm giving away 70% of it, you know.
But more importantly, it's going to be an EV yacht. They don't have a battery that big yet.
Yeah, I'm not dealing with those headaches, man. I'm ruined. I've got electric motorcycles now, like every bit of it. It's just, it's ruined me, and it's just, I don't know. Gas engines feel like antiques. You remember how much you hate a transmission, shifting gears, waiting for a turbo to spool up. I'm just too impatient, man. And like even my F-150, it's like a half-ton full-size truck, you know.
Yeah.
And it does 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. It'll probably do it in 6 seconds with a boat attached. And like I use and abuse that thing. And like knock on wood, man. But I just hit 40,000 miles. Like I've done a set of tires and a cabin air filter, some wiper blades. But like
it's a win.
That's it, man. And
you didn't have to do oil changes. You didn't have to do freaking You didn't have to do all that extra stuff. That would have been 10 times more expensive. That's a good thing.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. There's so many ways to look at it, whether it's national security. I can put solar panels on my roof, not relying on foreign oil.
That's true.
I don't know. There's a lot of pros and cons to it, but education and awareness is like our biggest goal right now. We're ramping up our social media, and it's a lot of fun right now.
What's your is it the Electrified Marina?
Yeah, that's for the business.
follow that.
My personal Instagram's Electric Boat Dude, and we're just trying to ramp that up because so many people don't even know our boats exist.
Right.
Our target demographic is like high net worth, like Rivian, Lucid, Cybertruck owner. We invite these people. We get a hold of them through marketing, and we invite them to these boat shows, and they get on these boats, and they're like, I didn't know electric boats existed.
Electric Boat Dude.
Like that's how much work
Gotcha.
we have to go. Like that's how much room we have to do. It's a lot of work right now.
You guys did a press run last year, and I wasn't able to make it for that one. But I know you guys are going to do something again this season. So let's link them offline just so we can make sure we can do that and get a few of our agents out there just for a day or something along those lines. I don't care what the boats are, to be fair.
Yeah.
But we'll make sure to do that because we have some really good in-house video guys now.
Yeah.
It's just content, man.
And the other side of it too, partnering with open houses too. If you've got someone looking at, $1 million plus homes on the water,
That's true.
A lot of times they've never lived on the water, so we could have a boat sitting back there, and it's like, hey, come experience what
idea.
it's like to live on the water.
That's a very good
and
point.
go for a quick 20-minute boat ride. And like, by the way, you've never owned a boat, you don't want to deal with the headaches, the maintenance, the tune-ups, the oil changes. Like, this is the perfect boat for you.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
if you're the guy that wants to go deep sea fishing or wakeboarding all day long, like we don't have the range for that.
Right.
But that's not most people.
That's
you
very
know?
true. That's like less than 1%, less than 0.5%.
Right.
Yeah.
Most of these people have got these little runabouts and these little bow riders,
Yeah.
and they just park at the Narrows, park at the sandbar, and anchored out in a cove, and they're just hanging out all day.
Yeah.
It's a social aspect.
What's the website for Electrified Marina?
Electrifiedmarina.com.
Okay.
And we've got boats, little cocktail boats as low as $30,000. Our most like usable boats, I say, are in the $100,000 to $150,000 range with 30 to 40 miles of range. And then we've got, sky's the limit on range and foiling boats, $500,000 boats, all kinds of stuff.
One last question while we got you. If you could tell yourself 10 years ago something that would keep you motivated, knowing what you know now, what would you have told yourself?
It's hard to answer. I had a similar question a couple months ago, and like, I'm not saying I'm in a low point right now, but I'm grinding. I'm at a hustle. Like, we got a long way to go. So
Right.
like, the light's still at the end of the tunnel. And like, when I talk to Chelsea, that light has just been getting further and further away. So it's kind of hard to say. I hope it all is going to be worth it.
It will.
Like we got a long way to go, but the people that we've impacted, I've got some employees that like are underpaid. We're not paying a market value because we're in a startup right now, and they say, I'm here because of you. You've pushed me to limits I never thought was possible, and I get choked up every time I talk about it because I've got a couple employees that have said it, and it's like, you don't care about my background, what my excuses are. Like, you push me to do more and be a bigger person, and that's why I'm here. And to know that they turn down jobs with 20, 30% raises because they're staying with us.
Right.
It's pretty cool. It means a lot.
That's a testament to a true leader. That's a testament to the vision and really everything aligned. So, Erick, we're going to see you soon, brother. We appreciate you coming on the show, man.
We're going to go out on some boat rides.
Yes, definitely. Electrified Marina, Electric Boat Dude on Instagram, everything else out there. Again, Erick Pinzon, Electrified Marina, Edgar Sphere, Munez, DJ Julian Rivera. Until next time, peace.